Good morning.
Morning,
I'm
ma'am.
to a different location. Probably there are very less participants today, so but then I don't want to stop the session, and let's begin the session. People will keep on joining in between. A very warm welcome to the day 9 of the 10 tips series which we are conducting right now. Um, Moving forward, obviously there would be a lot of new topics, but till now we have discussed a lot of topics which are going to be great for the educators, the teachers, and stuffs like that. So I just wanted to understand that I am audible to everyone. Can somebody give me a thumbs up? Okay, great. So I just wanted to make sure, because that I'm outside somewhere and there's a conference which is going on, and I couldn't just stop taking this session. Great. So without wasting time, let's go ahead and begin this session for today. So the first, obviously we have discussed about readiness in reading, readiness in writing, um, readiness in arithmetic. There are a lot of things obviously which we have discussed till now. There were some topics very specific to parents, and today's topic obviously takes a lot of efforts for the parents to deal with. uh, One of the major concerns of moms, because moms are always behind that, okay, my child has not eaten anything, and when will my child start eating? And children have always been kind of fussy eaters, which moms say that, okay, I always label my child as a fussy eater because he doesn't eat or doesn't want to eat whatever I give him to eat. So let's see some 10 tips which can help you out to understand why children do this and how we can rectify it. Before going into the topic, I would definitely want to tell you that food is something very emotional, right? Now, for example, let me try and give you an example of us. When we are into a very sad mood, right, we usually want to eat something which is sweet, right? We usually want to eat either a chocolate or a sweet, anything which gives us a little sweetness inside. Now that's because there are different kinds of hormones which are released when we are either sad or when we are happy. Now, when we are happy, obviously we can either do a diet, we can follow some great, diet plans for reducing weight, this, that. But when we are into sad mood, we crave for eating something good, eating something sweet, which are basically due to the emotional aspect of our internal body. And hence, I always say that food is emotional. Food is always related to the kind of emotions which you show across into your day-to-day life, right? Now, some point of time you are not in a mood to cook. Some point of time you are not in a mood to eat vegetarian. If somebody is non-vegetarian, somebody who is a vegetarian, somebody they want to have a lot of protein intake. Now, these all are related to the emotional aspect of our lives. Now, until and unless we are emotionally stabilized, till that time, the food which we are eating might not be into the regular quantity. If we are absolutely depressed, or we do not we are not into a complete emotional state of mind, at that point of time the intake of food completely reduces. On the second hand, when we are happy, let's say for example we are going out for a wedding and there's a buffet which is displayed, so what happens, we tend to eat more. And because obviously we are happy for good reason, if we have exhaust if we are exhausted and we just want to knock off, do we feel like eating? No, right? So food is always related to your emotions. Always remember, when a child is emotionally not connected to food, when the child is emotionally not connected to the environment, when the child is emotionally not in a well-being, that point of time, your food intake varies a lot. And hence, we into our common language obviously tell that he's a fussy eater or she's a fussy eater. But at the same point of time, you will have to analyze that why the child is not eating, why the child needs a little extra push for eating. Is there a medical issue with the child? Okay. So let's start off with the top 10 tips for handling fussy eaters. Yeah. Tip number 10. Can you look at the picture? How the whole thing is? The first thing is that picky eaters versus problem feeders. Now, always remember that children are not the major problem. There are sometimes problems are there with the moms, how they feed the children, and they keep on feeding the children. They keep on forcing the children to eat. Now, at some point of time, force doesn't work. Force works to some extent, but force doesn't work to a lot of extent when the child is like, oh my god, now she's going to come and mom is going to come and she's going to push me to have this. So always remember that to what extent you can push the child, to what extent you can tell a child to eat, and to what extent you can go against the will of the child. So the feeder, the one who is feeding, has the problem. Now also understand that children in there in the schools and the daycares sometime, and obviously parents are concerned about that whether my child has eaten or not. But at same point of time, what happens is that the the school or the daycare wants to finish the dabba which is given by the child, by the parents. Now, having said that, they don't even know that what the child has eaten in the morning. Now, if the child has eaten quite a lot and the child is not having space to stuff what is given in the dabbas or the tiffin boxes, it becomes really difficult for the child to finish off the tiffin box. Now, with the intention that the child has to finish the tiffin box, because parent is not going to like it if the dabbas are not finished. That's going to, so the daycare teacher or the daycare attender usually makes all the efforts to finish off the dabba. Okay. Hence, again, the problem is not with the eater, the problem is with the feeder. So the child has to understand, sorry, the feeder has to understand that, okay, the child's dabba is this much, and the child has to be fed what the child is hungry for. The child might not be hungry for finishing off the whole content of the tiffin box, right? And hence, please understand, as moms, as educators, as parents, whatever the child wants to eat at the willingness has to be given to the child first, because the more you force the child, the more the child has an unlikingness towards food, and the fussiness towards eating increases. Okay, let's go to tip number 9. Hunger doesn't have a watch. Now, I have seen a lot of mothers feeding the child looking at the time. Now, specifically when the child is not speaking, I mean, during very early ages. Obviously, there's a time limit which we see and we eat, because we also don't understand when the child is hungry. That's when the child has not started speaking yet, or the child is not able to express in language that the child is hungry or the child is not yet hungry, right? So at that point of time, obviously, I still can give you a bonus point that, okay, the child is not able to tell, and probably the child is hungry, right? And all the cry, when a child cries, we usually relate it to hunger, right? Because that's what is the basic need at that point of time when the child is an infant. But when a child grows up and we are still on to the stage where we are looking at the watch and we are telling that, okay, it's already 2 hours, the child will be hungry. It's already 2 hours, the child would be hungry. So I still remember my mom used to feed my son every 2 hours. Even he was like kind of 3 years or 4 years old. My mom used to feed my son with every 2 hours gap, which was like, the child might not be hungry at all. The child is telling that, okay, I'm not hungry, I'm in a mood to play, so let me play for some time, and the moment I am hungry, I will come and start searching for food, or I will ask, looking for you to ask for food. Okay, so remember, hunger doesn't look into the watch and come. The hunger comes when it has to come, right? So give a little bit of time to the child to feel hungry. On the other hand, if you do not let the child feel hungry, the child will never understand the concept of hunger, right? So it's very important the child should understand the concept of hunger, because you are always feeding the child before even the child has started feeling hungry. Now, when the child grows up, the child will not be able to cope up with that feeling of hunger. When the child has gone out somewhere, you are traveling somewhere, and it is kind of, the child is a little hungry, and you will have to wait for some time for food. The child at that point of time will not be able to wait, because the child had yet not experienced the feeling of hunger before. Okay, now third, scientifically, it is also not good for you to give food before the child is hungry. Why? Because when you are hungry, that point of time itself, your digestive process starts. Your digestive juices start secreting, and hence, when you eat food, the digestion becomes faster, right? Hence, scientifically, if you look at with the emotional aspect of the child, it's always better to give the child food when the child is hungry and not looking at the watch. Tip number 8: do not demonize food. Now, we as mothers, we all have this habit that, to tell the children that, if you do not eat food, then the monster will come and take you away. If you do not eat food, monster will come and take mama away. If you are not eating your food, then you will have uh, you know uh, the Batman, or the Iron Man coming and taking away. So food has always been demonized by us, giving a feel that until and unless I have food, or if I do not have food, then something negative is going to happen. Now, what happens? The child restricts himself or herself to express his or her choice, because obviously mom is the first choice. Demons are never a choice. They will never want to go to the demons, right? So it's always, uh, we have to understand that this, just eating of one, it's not about eating of one meal. It's about a complete cycle of food which you are building it across into a child. The child needs to understand food, what is his or her likingness and dislikingness, and at the similar time, you cannot force your likingness and dislikingness to the child. Hence, please stop demonizing food, because at some point of time, your bahanas you will get exhausted, and that point of time the child will understand, oh my god, even if I don't eat food, monster is to never coming. Let me just try first and not eat food, and let's see what happens. Okay, so your whole stories will end, but at the same point of time, the child will start figuring out new ways. So rather than having a negative impact and demonizing food, it's always better that you start giving choices to the child from the beginning. Hence, the child starts having a likingness towards food and feels independent of understanding his or her own choice. Okay, let's move to tip number 7. Food has multi-sensorial impact, and hence it has to be in sync. So the child has to be in sync with the food. So when we say multi-sensory impact, food is something which can attract you through the eyes, through nose, through mouth, through hands. So all the major sensory inputs can be achieved through food. Hence, it's very important the child sees the food, the child smells the food, the child tries and eating the food by themselves, tastes the food by themselves, eats it by his or her own hand. Now, I have seen a lot of mothers trying and feeding the child quite a lot of time, but it's always better that the child starts eating by themselves. Now, there are some cases where we see that when a child is eating, the child gags. There's a choking kind of sound which comes. uh, we have to understand that there might be cases where the child is not comfortable while taking the food, whether it is because of the texture, whether it is because of the smell, whether it is because the child is not liking to see it, because food has multi-sensorial impact. Right now, gagging, specifically gagging and throwing up or vomiting, can be okay for 1 or 2 times, but if this continues, because it is a sensorial issue, because if it continues, that means the child has to be taken to a doctor for a medical advice. It means that the child might have issues into swallowing. It means the child might have an issue into the texture of the food, which might not be correct for the child, and hence you need to seek a doctor's advice. I keep on telling that because food has a multisensorial impact, children might be showing some kind of issues like gagging, vomiting, not because they are picky eaters, but might be because they have some other issues, just rather than being just a picky eater, right? So if it all it continues, then please understand it, the child might not be only a picky eater, there might be issues, and please consult a doctor for this. Let's come to tip number 6. Allow playing with the food. We usually stop the children not playing with the food, because obviously we always feel that as Indians, we feel that food is auspicious and we should not play with the food. Now, as I said in my previous slide, that food has multi-sensorial impact. Children need to understand the texture of the food through their hands, smell it through their nose, understand it through their mouth, and see it through their eyes. Now, while doing all these things, they tend to play with the food, and with the play, they start eating. Now, eating process always gets easier if you allow the child to have this sensorial exposure, and this will in turn help them to eat the food by themselves. This will help them to understand the food by themselves, right? So please understand that food has to be experienced. Food has to be by themselves experienced. It cannot be that mom is making a paste of it and feeding me, and I don't even know what is mom feeding me. I don't even see what is mom feeding me, right? There are a lot of cases that we take a bowl. Inside the bowl there will be rice, dal, sabzi, everything mixed together. We are going to smash it, and the smashed food is given to the child. The child is not even seeing what is there, right? The child sometimes takes it out to see, right? The child takes it out to see that what mom is feeding me. It's not because the child is something, doing some naughty stunts. It's basically the child wants to see what mom is feeding me, because you're not even showing the child. Okay. Give the child, or allow the child the experience of holding the food by themselves, having a little fun with the food, and eating by themselves from a very early age. When I say early as 8 months onwards. If the child starts being exposed to food by themselves from 8 months onwards, I am very sure that children will start eating by themselves, and you will not have issues into children selecting food by themselves. Tip number 5. Now, obviously, when I say start allowing children for food, I mean playing with food, allow the kids to eat by themselves. It might be a little messier for you to clean up. Obviously, as mums, we do have a lot of work, and with this generation where we do not have much of help, and COVID worsening the situation, that um, there are no maids, and we are quite anxious to have maids at our home. We always make sure that children do not spill more food or mess up the house more, so that we have the entire spill the entire house is clean and there's no spill to be cleaned up. But please understand, until and unless the child is getting that experience to eat by themselves, it's going to be really difficult for you to make the child eat at a later stage. So please start giving them the baby spoons, the baby forks, their own food from the time they are able to sit and hold or grab a spoon or a fork. And believe me, these skills will not only help them in eating, but also make them ready for writing, right? So always remember, children have to start eating by themselves from 8 months to 12 months. They might take 2 hours, they might spill the food, there might be a lot of mess up, but please give the children that opportunity to eat by themselves. Okay. uh, you will have to be creative. Tip number 4, right? Please, obviously mothers are definitely creative with the kind of stories we tell it across to the children, with the kind of decorations we do at home, with the kind of upkeep we do for the whole house. Moms are always creative, right? So I don't think it should take a big amount of deal to create something beautiful from food, and have stories related to it, which will help the child to build in that interest for eating. Now, can you see the pictures? Such beautiful pictures of food, which, so I have some pictures from fruits, I have some pictures from vegetables, I have pictures of eggs, I have pictures of rotis and chapatis as well, right? So look at the kind of creativity which has been there, right? Understanding the nutritional value of the food. Every kind of food can be created decoratively and served across to the children. And always remember, as I said, food is multi-sensorial. It first appeals the eyes, right? So the moment the food is served to the child and is in an interesting way, the child will always want to explore it, what exactly it is. Can I eat and taste? Can I see what exactly mom has prepared for me? Let me see how the bear ka nose tastes. Let me see how the chickens from the little eggs, how they are tasting, right? So you can actually build up this stories to the child as well, telling that key, okay, see chicken number one, chicken number two, chicken number three, how they are tasting. You can always tell that key, chicken number one with the carrot is tasting better than the chicken number two with the cucumber. Okay, so always have different kinds of stories building in to be more creative about food. And as moms, definitely I understand that you will be able to make up new stories because you have been always doing it, right? Let's come to tip number 3. As I said, stories. Obviously, after you have created so many beautiful things from this food materials, you can build up your own stories from that. Otherwise, start reading bedtime stories also if your children are fussy eaters. Now, bedtime stories are always effective because you give them a lot of morally or socially developed stories. Stories like Ganesha's sweet tooth, lot of stories which are related to mythological aspect, where you can connect the Lord Ganesha, Lord Krishna stuffs, and the food which they had the likingness towards it. So you can connect their stories with the children to start making them think that okay, they can also act like the childhood days of Lord Ganesha or Lord Krishna to eat those things. Okay, you can also try relating food to the superman or the superheroes which the child is interested to. It can be the Iron Man, it can be the Superman, it can be the Doraemon, it can be the Chota Bheem, wherever the child is interested in. You can connect the food to the story or the character and start building up your new stories to introduce any kind of new food. The only thing you'll have to remember is that when you are introducing a story and in that story you have a specific food item to be introduced, please make that food item the next day. So what happens is the child is able to connect that, right? The child is able to relate that, okay, Superman had that. I read it in the story or mom told me in the story, and today I'm going to have it. Okay, so I'm going to be powerful as Superman, right? So always remember to relate or generalize the food into the real life onto the next day itself, so that the child doesn't have to think about ki, okay, mom had told me that day story which the child will not remember. So it should be immediate next day. Okay. Tip number 2, avoid cooking separate meals. Now there are lot of cases where mums say that ki, okay, my child is not going to eat this. I will prepare something else for the child. No, the child has to eat whatever is going to be prepared for the entire family. I had obviously I'll talk about one of my aunt, and her daughter was kind of a really fussy eater, and now I can figure out that why her daughter was a fussy eater, because uh, she would not eat one item and she would have about 10 items in list ready, telling her that okay, if you do not have this, will you have the next one? If you do not have the next one, will you have the third one? If you do not have the third one, will you have the fourth one? Now from that list of the 10, also she might not be picking up anything, and she has an 11th one as well in her mind. If my daughter doesn't eat all these 10 items, let me give this as another option as well. Okay, doesn't work like that. Okay, the child has to understand that I am eating what mom, dad and others are eating in the family. I am a part of the family and there's nothing separately going to be cooked. The more you give options to the child, the more the child is going to be taking you for a ride, and the child is going to be demanding for you, and the fussy eating habit or the picky eating habit is going to increase all the more. um, Another thing which you will have to always remember, that spice up the food a bit, because as again repeating the same thing, that food is a multi-sensorial thing. There's a lot of activities which happens inside the mouth when the child eats the food. Now, specific parts of the tongue are activated when you eat a salty food, a sweet food, a bitter food, and your bland food doesn't help you out in anything. So, whenever you are eating a different kind of spice, a certain portion of your tongue is activated. Now, that in turn helps the child in speech. Okay, because tongue is the organ which helps you out into speech. So, always remember that when you are preparing food, please spice up the food. Children can start having little bit of spice from when they have started to when we are introducing them a regular meal along with the family. So do not feel that the child will be not able to eat anything spicy. Child will be able to eat spicy, a bit of spicy definitely, and no separate cooking for the children. Okay, let's come to tip number 1. Family should eat together. Now, we always say family which eats together, prays together, stays together, right? So, this time should always be dedicated to the family, where or the eating time should be dedicated to the family. At least one meal should be eaten together. Ideally, two meals, but if at all possible, the breakfast and the dinner. Obviously lunch is usually not possible because everyone will be out. Kids will be out for school, dads will be out for working, moms will be out for working. So always remember, at least one meal, if not two meals. If you have the privilege of eating two meals together, please go ahead and do that. If not, at least one meal should be eaten together along with the parents. Now why is because they will see that mom is also eating the same thing, dad is also eating the same thing, brother is also eating the same thing, and the rest of the members in the family are also eating the same thing, and hence I have to also eat the same thing. So if you are eating the so if you are actually having this family time together while eating together, that will definitely foster or enhance a healthy eating habit into the children. We are so busy into our lives that we usually um, what we do is we whenever we whenever we have time, we eat at that point of time. But it's always better that we eat together at least one meal. Okay. uh, Having said that, postures while eating is very important. The child should be able to access the plate, and the plate and the mouth should be easily accessible. In Indian style, lot of families till now eat in on the floor. It's definitely good eating on the floor because we do have our own postures where which are correct for eating in Indian style. But a child who is really small, it's always advisable to have a feeding chair where the distance between the mouth and the hand, I mean the plate, is lesser. And when the child is building the habit of eating by themselves, are you all able to hear me? Can somebody give me a thumbs up? Okay, cool. So, but yes, when a child is starting to eat by himself or herself, at that point of time, it's always better that the distance between the plate and the mouth, where the child is going to have this continuous effort, has to be lesser. Usually while sitting down, what happens is the plates are down, and our mouth, the distance between the mouth and the plate is quite higher. Not advisable for a child who is actually trying to start start eating habits. It's always preferable that you give a small stool to the child, so that the child can have the plate on that, or have a feeding chair for the child where the child can easily sit, and the distance also is kind of very close by to the mouth. Okay. With this, obviously, we end today's session for the 10 tips of fussy eater. uh, I've been always telling about all these things, that about the certification courses which we have, which are short-term in program 10 hours courses. Other than that, we also have our long-term programs, which are your early childhood diploma programs and entity program diploma, which is which will be accredited to three different organizations, which is international organization, where international accreditation organization, All India Institute of Early Childhood Care Education, which is again associated with Ministry of HRD of India, and Early Child Care Association, which is ECA. At the end of the certification, you will receive three certificates, which is your course completion certificate, your POXO training certificate, and a safe baby training certificate. We are present across different cities, which is Hyderabad, Chennai, Mumbai, and Bangalore, obviously. So, in case you want to understand more about the course, you can definitely get in touch with us through the website, which is www.chalk.academy. You can write to us, or you can call us up on 911 088 3082. I would love to see if there is any kind of questions from the audience. Cool. So then we end the session today. I think it was lovely participation, and tomorrow we will have the last session of this 10 tips workshop series, which is on experiential learning. So we will have 10 tips on different kinds of experiential learning, which you as an educator, you can give it across to to your kids, and as parents, you can give it across to your kids. So see you tomorrow at 11 again. Till then, bye bye.